That does it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. Banfield starts now.
And welcome to a very special episode of Banfield. We're coming to you from CrimeCon in Nashville, Tennessee. The annual event brings together some of the biggest names in true crime, including professionals, victims' family members, content creators, and fans of the genre. For the first time ever, we're broadcasting our show in front of a studio audience, which is pretty exciting as well. You're going to see all of them throughout the show. They've been waiting actually a couple hours to join us for this exclusive reporting and for the guests that we have lined up for you tonight, including John Ramsey, the Petito family, and the daughter of Dennis Rader, the BTK serial killer, who is making news tonight, revealing something that he did to her as a toddler that now puts her in the same league as his other victims. She's going to join us in a moment with that. And a very big thank you to all of our guests who've come out to be at part of the show. It's much appreciated. We're so happy that you're all joining us. I want to start, however, tonight with a serial killer known the world over, and certainly to everybody who is at CrimeCon, known by just 3 letters, BTK. It's been almost 20 years since I watched as a Cub Scout leader and a church elder named Dennis Rader stood up in a Kansas courtroom and pled guilty to 10 murders, 10 victims who he'd bound, tortured, and killed, giving rise to that nickname BTK. But tonight you're about to hear from an 11th victim, one who survived and lived out her childhood with him. But were there other murders to which he never admitted, other lives that he stole for which he was never held to account? That has been the question since 2005, and now investigators say they are closer than ever to answering yes. And the girl, who many believe is BTK's 11th victim, maybe the 12th now, has a name, Cynthia Kinney. Kinney was a 16-year-old cheerleader who disappeared from an Oklahoma laundromat in 1976 and was never found. Rader was suspected for a few different reasons. A bank across the street from that laundromat was having an ADT security alarm installed when Kinney went missing, and Rader was an ADT installer. In a journal entry that Rader wrote, laundromat was, quote, a good place to watch victims. In another journal entry, Rader used the term bad wash day. And frankly, who says that? And then there's the puzzle, a word puzzle that Rader sent to a Kansas TV station back in 2004, the year before he was arrested. In April of this year, somebody mailed that puzzle to the Oklahoma sheriff who's investigating Kinney's cold case. And this is it, the puzzle. It appears to be a few innocuous words surrounded by random letters, but the TV station connected some letters and found some not so innocuous words, including prowl and fantasies. And detectives found even more, including Rader's home address, the names of his 10 admitted victims, plus these words: Cindy, Kinney, laundromat, and Kahika, as well as Pawhuska. If you know the story, Cindy Kinney disappeared from a laundromat on Kahika Avenue in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. The same month investigators received that puzzle, I myself received a letter from BTK with an update on his life behind bars. And he wrote this, I quote, I am aware of you and at one time watched NewsNation in between CNN and Fox. Always enjoyed the program. To bring you up to speed on me, on 12/31/25, we'll call it quits. BTK, etc., plus retire. We'll only correspond with around 15% of who I correspond with today. Age soon 79, plus as you know well, I'm famous around the world. I live alone at cell B1-140 here at EDCF. That's the El Dorado Correctional Facility. 18 plus years. Was arrested 2/25/2005, 19 years ago. I live in segregation, sort of called whole. We as inmates have a lot of restrictions, yet I have TV, phone, books, magazines, etc., play chess by mail or phone. calling it quits. December 31st, 2025. Mark your calendar. I guess. Although I'm really not entirely sure what Rader thinks he's quitting or what he's retiring from. But let me stop here and bring in two people who have been following this saga very closely, two people who are also right at home in this crowd. Gigi McKelvey hosts the very popular podcast Pretty Lies and Alibis. And Brian Enton is a NewsNation senior national correspondent. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for being here. By the way, can I just say that when you walk around CrimeCon, everybody asks about you guys.
Oh, my God.
Right? Am I right?
Everybody
I am right, right?
About you.
Oh, no. It's all Gigi and Brian. So, Brian, let me start with you. This BTK, I am always mesmerized by every bit that I learn about him. And some people just say, well, why bother? Why bother even going forward with any other investigations? He's serving out life. Why do we even care?
We care because these other families need justice. And the fact that there's still these open investigations. They've been ongoing. They've been interviewing BTK in jail. He's writing these letters. They're still trying to figure out the codes. I mean, you talked about the puzzle. The puzzle. And you've got families out there that are still waiting. I mean, he may be in jail and not getting out, which is great, but they would like to know what happened to their loved ones.
Yeah, and I think unless you walk in the shoes of a crime victim, you don't know what it feels like to be left hanging. And we're going to address that very deeply on this program tonight. Gigi, last year, Rader was suspected in the death of Shauna Garber. And in March, the police announced that they'd actually solved that crime. So it's no longer considered to be a Rader crime. The killer was a man named Talfi Reeves.
Yep.
Talfi Reeves. What was the difference between Shauna's death and Cynthia's death? And why did everybody think it might be Rader?
I think the biggest reason with Rader, as far as with Shauna, is you had the puzzle. And you had these different words. I mean, you had her name, you had the laundromat, you had the city that it happened in, and he was the ADT installer. I mean, there's just so many coincidences with that particular victim, where with the other, it really just didn't have all that weight to it that this one potentially does. And I'm with Brian. I think that these families, even if he's never going to get out of prison, he deserves years, the rest of his life, on her life, because he took her life, if that's proven. Yeah. I think that's a big thing is, you know, and we get that a lot in true crime. Why bother if somebody's already in prison for life? Well, it matters to these families because they're suffering. They have no answers, and they need justice, and the victim especially. There is something about being able to get into a courtroom if you're the family of a loved one who's been murdered, right, and be able to say something and actually have a voice. Yes. Because they stay voiceless for so long in the process. We're going to address that, too, a little later on. First, though, Carrie Rawson is BTK's daughter. Yeah. Very few. He has talked to very few people. He's written a few, but he has talked to very few. But he has spoken with her, and you had a chance to learn some pretty remarkable, brand new breaking news on Carrie Rawson. What did you find out? I
did, yeah, and I've talked to Carrie Rawson several times over the years and stayed in touch, and what she told me today was disturbing, was shocking, was something that I didn't see coming, and my heart goes out to her. Totally caught me off guard, but I want you to listen to this, Ashleigh. This is what Carrie told me a little while ago.
I stepped in June of 23. I volunteered my time and effort and my services to Osage County, and I've now flown in there about 9 times, about a week at a time, and I work hand in hand with law enforcement. I'm working through all my dad's evidence, and I've gone in to see my dad in prison 5 times.
Do you think, based on what you know, that he's involved in Cynthia's death?
Right now, we're still under investigation, so it's like circumstantial, really, but there's like mounting evidence. But, you know, what we really need to do is we need to find Cindy. And so there's been a lot of effort in trying to locate where she maybe is, no matter what happened to her. And there's a lot of effort in her case. And then there's quite a few other cases that are potentially being looked at in like the Midwest and Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. So it's just an ongoing investigation.
Yeah. What's it like for you? I mean, you've, after so many years, actually gone in to see your dad to try to help get information. You've had to sit with him face to face in the prison.
Yeah, I hadn't seen him for 18 years, so I dropped contact with him after he was arrested, and we only did letters. And then I actually was no contact for a couple years. And then when I found out about Cindy and then Shauna, I just, like, when I looked at the evidence that, like, could match my father, I was like, no, I have to do something. And so actually the governor's office of Kansas waived like restrictions so I could go in and see my father and sit across from him. So I sit like about 6 feet from him. And he's in a wheelchair and he's in handcuffs and he's lost about like 9 inches. So he's a lot shorter than me now, and it's really hard to see him. But it's been good because I've been able to reconnect with just my dad, and then I've been able to do something positive, you know? Like, it took something this big to get me in there to see him. It's difficult to go in, but I go in and spend about 2 or 3 hours with him, and I've done that like 5 times now.
Does that bring, that's got to bring back emotions for you and new revelations and...
Oh, well, and for sure. And one of the things I'm going to be sharing here at CrimeCon is a victim impact statement. And I'm going to be sharing that we found in my dad's journal entries a notation that's marked 1981 in all caps, carry/BND/game. And we know BND is bondage. And so when I went in to see the Osage County Sheriff's Office the first night in June, they let me look at the journal because they had found it, and they wanted me to find it. And we knew right away that it's pretty much symbolizes that my father committed sexual abuse against me when I was like 2.5. And there's another notation in there too right after that. Now, in June, then I went in to see my dad the next day, but I wasn't able to confront him at that time. I finally did in October. I did trauma therapy. I did EMDR. And then I went back in and saw my dad in October, and I confronted him with it. And we showed him the journal entry. And we showed him this photo of him. There's a Polaroid that's not been publicized that he took where he's dressed up like a woman, and he's got like long hair, and he's over a doll that he made that's a child, and strangling the doll. And when I saw the photo this summer, I knew that's what he had done to me. And I've had like that kind of stuck in me, like this image of something happening to me when I was little. And I've always had an issue with my neck. And I had talked to like a detective that helped catch my dad in 2005. I have talked to criminologists. I've talked to Dr. Ramsey. I've talked to therapists, and everybody agrees it's very possible my father did commit sexual abuse against me. And I just didn't have that piece of like evidence until we found that journal.
Didn't he admit it?
So in October, I went in, and when I go in, he has to waive Miranda with law enforcement. So I go in and I say, hey, I'm here with Osage County Sheriff's Office. You know, would you like to waive your Miranda and speak to them? And he was mad and very angry that day and said, I thought the investigation was over. I don't like you coming in here. And he got so angry at me, my PTSD flared up. And I actually kind of ran for a while out of that room. And then I went back and I sat down with him, and he goes, what is wrong with you? And I said, I have PTSD. And he goes, what is that? And like within about a 20-minute span, he gaslit me, emotional abuse, mental abuse, and he told me I had brought all of this on myself. And so then he said, what will help you? Because I was upset. So he's like going back and forth between like dad and BTK. And I said, the sheriff will help if you can bring law enforcement in, because, you know, they're like family. So they came in with me, and we showed my dad the journal entry and that photo. And he goes, well, it was just a fantasy. So first he completely denied it, and then you present him with the evidence, just like if, say, there were more murders.
Yeah.
And then he comes up with something like to pad around it. And he said it was just a fantasy, and that he never touched his family. But we know that he strangled my brother twice as a young adult. I saw that. I witnessed it. So between the trauma I've had, this thing embedded in me, the disassociation, the night terrors, I'm 100% sure he harmed me when I was little.
Yeah, this was so disturbing, Ashleigh.
Bless her heart.
It's all
She's such
just
a
now
sweet
coming
girl.
out. And to think that she was going there after years and years and years to the prison to talk to him face to face to try to solve some of these other cases. She sees that journal entry, and it all came back to her. She went to therapy, and through the therapy, she was actually able to remember some of this stuff that her own dad.
But the thing that just, so much of that caught in my throat,
Yeah.
but the thing I can't believe is that he said, oh dear, it was just a fantasy.
Well,
as if that is some excuse for binding your toddler and sexually molesting her. It was just a fantasy?
Well, and at first he denied it outright, she told me. Then when they showed him the actual entry and said, but what does this mean? Oh, it was just a fantasy. And she had to sit there face to face with him. She's such a strong woman.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
She also gave us I don't know, I always feel like if someone is going to be locked away for life, you want to know it's not fun. You want to know they are suffering, that they're not easily adapting to their surroundings. And she was the one who told us he is literally rotting away. Yeah. You see the pictures of him. He is atrophying, Gigi. Yeah. He just looks like a shell of what he once was.
As he should. I mean, that's karma coming around. I mean, look what he did to these innocent women over the years.
I don't know if it's Schadenfreude, but it does feel good to see him looking.
Well, in the letter he wrote you about how he's going to retire.
Right.
I mean, it's just sick. This guy, he likes the attention.
Yeah.
They all do.
Yeah.
They all do. Brian Enton and Gigi McKelvey, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ashleigh.
And I'm going to spend a lot more time with you here at CrimeCon as well. It has been almost 3 years since Gabby Petito was found dead in a national forest thousands of miles from home. And though her parents have devoted themselves to healing and to helping others, they feel that there's still a lot more to do to honor Gabby's memory. And they sat down with our Laura Ingle today here at CrimeCon and revealed some of those plans. Plus, they revealed they're doing something that was robbed from them when Brian Laundrie took his own life. You are about to find out what it is. The conversation is next. Back to Banfield. We are at CrimeCon. We've got a studio audience for the very first time for this program. We're so thankful to see all of you. Thank you for coming. And thank you for all of your support as well. Much appreciated. You know, there's probably not one person here at CrimeCon who does not know the name Gabby Petito. Because Gabby wanted to share her vibrant, freewheeling life with the whole world. And she did just that from her white transit van that would take her on a cross-country odyssey. In mountains and deserts over thousands of miles, Gabby did share her life, little knowing that it would soon end. And it would end far too soon, in a tragic and despicable way that was also laid bare for the whole world to see. For Gabby's parents, the nightmare began when the man Gabby planned to marry, Brian Laundrie, returned home to Florida inexplicably without her. When her body was eventually found, the Petitos would be robbed yet again when Laundrie took his own life after confessing to killing her. And that meant that the Petitos would never get the chance to face their daughter's killer in court. They'd never get the chance to confront him about it. They'd never get the chance to tell him exactly how they felt and how much they had lost. Tonight, though, that all changes. The family is using this opportunity at CrimeCon to give a victim's impact statement. And we had a chance to meet up with them as they were gearing up to take the mic. I am joined now by NewsNation senior national correspondent Laura Ingle, who was with Gabby's parents earlier today. This is such a profound thing that they are doing. Were they nervous?
You know, when we talked to them today, remember there's 4 parents, right? So we have Joe and Nicole and Jim and Tara. They raised Gabby Petito. I asked them, you know, this is a moment. I actually didn't know that this was going to happen here at CrimeCon. So this is a huge deal for them to be able to voice that. And it's just the moms. So, and I had asked Joe and Jim, I said, are you guys wanting to do this? Did you want to participate? They said, we're not ready. We're not ready for it. The moms, though, are. They said that they are not nervous, that they are ready for this moment. And so this is going to be a really important time for them to be able to voice what they always wanted to say to Brian Laundrie and his family in front of in front of an audience to tell them exactly how they feel about what happened. This is it.
Let's take a look at your conversation from earlier.
That's right. And I also asked them, too, how did you get to this moment to prepare to be here at CrimeCon? It's also very supportive. Here's what they told me.
We were very apprehensive the first year, and we found the community to be very respectful and heartwarming and really caring, which was not what my assumption was. And so that's what made us come back and want to be a part of it, because they do try and help as many people, and that's kind of what we're about.
It just feels loving and caring and supportive, and we are happy to be here. And we're all about advocacy, and if people want to bring their missing posters up to our booth, they can tack them up to the board. We brought a board this year, so we can help in any way we can.
I met you, Jim, when we were in Wyoming together when the search was on, and I was with you in the moment that you got an important phone call.
And on September 19th, that morning, we had set up that interview to try to get the word out, you know, some updates. And all morning I was getting phone calls, and I know you were asking a lot of questions about what was going on, and I didn't really know. I just kind of knew something was up. Just trying to give some updates of what was going on, and then that's when I got that phone call to go back to the hotel. We had to end the interview early, and that's when Charlie from the FBI and Rita met me at the hotel and told us that they had found her. And it was that's a day you don't really forget ever.
Right.
You think you're prepared for it, but you're not.
Well, we are sorry to know you under these circumstances, but now that we do know you under these circumstances, you have all turned your grief into purpose. Joe, tell us about where the foundation is, how it started, and so much has happened since you guys announced all together that you were going to create this foundation in Gabby's name.
So we knew there was some voids that needed to be filled, and we wanted to help as much as we can. And Nikki actually came up with, we should really start a foundation and really try to help as many people as we can. And where we wanted to go, so we all sat down and started to do some focus. And we've done a lot of work since. We've helped be a part of, in one way or another, 4 law changes around the country, 2 for missing people and 2 for domestic violence. So we're actually working on a 5th right now for the state of New York when it comes to lethality assessment.
Talk to me about her creativity and what you think about when you think about her art and her love and her spirit.
From the moment she picked up a pencil or a pen, she was an artist. She would draw for hours, and she would do that her whole life. When she was a teenager, she started to express her need to travel and see the world, and she wanted to get out there. When she wanted to do something, she was very strong-willed, so she would find a way to do it. Even if we couldn't afford it, she figured it out. So once she graduated high school, she decided that she was going to work towards that. Once we saw her YouTube video that she created, we knew that she found her passion, and it was just immediate. I was like, this girl's going to go places with this. She is just going to see the world, love life, and we knew that she would be very successful.
She's a Beatles fan, and I know that that meant a lot to you to get that ink on your arms. You still have them, obviously.
Of course.
We actually got new ones too. Yeah. So she had a ghost riding a skateboard. So we went.
Oh, let me see.
So mine is actually on.
Okay, and where's yours?
Mine's right here.
All right, different sizes, different placement.
Yes.
What are you planning to do, and what was that like to prepare?
I think that it's just an important part of the process, the healing process, to get those emotions out, if on paper or out for people to hear.
It hit me that I never will get the opportunity to do that. So I did not have one written, and I decided that I was going to do it. So I wrote it. It took me a couple days. I put a lot of thought into it, and I wanted to address, Brian, even though he's not here. I wanted to address his family and just say what I needed to say, but also talk about Gabby, because she's more important. And I'm looking forward to reading it.
And here is a really interesting part as well. They are going to be wearing T-shirts during this victim impact statement reading in front of a crowd. They're going to wear T-shirts that say "Burn after reading." You remember where you heard that. That was in a letter that Roberta Laundrie had written to her son Brian Laundrie, saying, if you're in prison, I would bake you a cake with a file in it. If you killed somebody, I would bring you a shovel and garbage bags. So they're going to be wearing a T-shirt that says "Burn after reading." It is a moment that they wanted to have.
And basically, that's not just a statement. It's not a victim's impact statement to Brian Laundrie. It is a statement to his parents with this shirt as well. Laura, thank you. That's just a great interview and such incredible news that you're breaking with what their plans were for CrimeCon. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And I just want to add, if you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship and needs help, you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. It's easy to remember. I always say this. Take a screen grab of your TV set right now. It's 1-800-799-SAFE or 1-800-799-7233. As Gabby's family and so many other families know all too well, there's no pain that compares to the pain of losing a child. But if anything could possibly make that agony worse, it's losing a child to violence and then waiting in vain for justice. My next guest has waited almost 30 years for someone to be held accountable for the death of his precious daughter, JonBenet. But John Ramsey refuses to give up hope or to stop pushing for investigators to find answers. And John is going to join me right here at CrimeCon when we come back. When you are immersed in vicious crimes and despicable criminals, as we generally are when we work on this show every night, there is certainly a risk of becoming desensitized. To look at mystery, say, from 30,000 feet and maybe to lose sight of the horror. But there is a certain type of crime where that never happens. Never. The horrors are real and wrenching, and they never get reduced to a box score. And those are the crimes against children. Kids like J.J. Vallow and Ty Lee Ryan, whose own mother, Lori Vallow, is serving life in prison for their murders. Lori Vallow's fifth and latest husband, Chad Daybell, was also just convicted of J.J. and Ty Lee's murders and the murder of his first wife, who was also the mother of his children, Tammy Daybell. We've also brought you the story of Bella Fontanelle, who was murdered last year at age 6. Allegedly, her father's girlfriend beat her and strangled her and then was later seen pulling a wagon down the street with Bella's body stuffed into a 12-gallon bucket. Police say the girlfriend delivered that bucket to the front yard of Bella's mother's house, and that girlfriend was arrested the very next day. And as horrible as those crimes are, at least the killers or alleged killers were caught. Someone is or was being held to account. Not so in the crime that may well be the most famous cold case in America. JonBenet Ramsey was murdered in her own home on Christmas Day or shortly thereafter, back in 1996. Her body was found by her dad, John Ramsey, who has worked relentlessly to keep this case a priority, even as it's gone unsolved for almost 30 years. John Ramsey is here with me at CrimeCon. I'm so glad to see you in person.
Thank you for inviting me.
You know, we've talked so many times over the years, and we have a chance to see each other in real life, only rarely, but I keep coming back to just how long this has been. And right before we came on air together, I'm just going to let you know a secret. John and I were talking about how old JonBenet would be today. 34.
34, yeah.
34. It's hard to imagine.
It is, and I don't try to imagine that either because I don't know. We always knew she would be special. She was an extrovert, very smart, full of energy. My worry was she was going to run off to Hollywood.
Well, she seemed like she was on
She
route.
likes to perform and, dance and sing, but we knew she would do something unique, and we can only imagine now.
I remember, I think it was in 2018, I asked you a question and I wasn't prepared for the response. I asked you if you imagine what she looks like today, and you told me absolutely not.
No, I don't know how to do that. My memory of her is as my little girl, my child, and it's a very vivid memory. And I can't extrapolate that into what she might be like today.
She's like frozen in time for you, like she is for us, I would imagine.
Yes, very much so.
You know, the FBI does age progression for children who are lost. And I've often wondered if that's something that the parent of a child who's been lost to that parent would want. Would you want to see something like that?
No, I've never thought about it, but I don't think so. I met one of her little friends who she used to play with in her neighborhood. Hadn't seen her in 30 years. And I met her on the street just accidentally, and she was JonBenet's age, but now she was 30. And it was really kind of sobering in a way, just a different, like, wow, I never thought about what JonBenet would be like at 30.
What went through your mind at that point? I can't sort of imagine what that would be like.
A little bit of a shock in that I remember this little girl as a little girl playing with JonBenet.
You remember her?
In her front yard. I remember that, and now she's grown and on her own, and it was kind of sobering in a way because it was also made me realize that we'd lost our future with JonBenet. We'd lost a future, and so So we don't know what would have happened with her life. And that's a loss for not only her family, but who knows what she might have cured cancer someday. Who knows?
You didn't get to see a graduation. You didn't get to see a wedding. You didn't get to see grandchildren from John. And that would be the age. Like she might be having children now.
A grandchild for us.
Yeah.
She would have been a good mother. I know that because her mother was a good mother.
Was she really motherly to the dolls as a 6-year-old?
Well, yes and no. She also had a tomboy element to her.
Wait. I can't process that. I've only seen her as this little princess dressed in the glitz and glamour.
Well,
You're saying she was a tomboy?
Oh yeah, she had her older brother, of course, and Burke, and she'd be out sliding down the hill on a piece of cardboard, or just out there with the boys, and the beauty pageant thing was just something they had fun with, and Patsy had been diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer in. A couple of years before we lost JonBenet, and so she was successful in going into remission, and I think Patsy was trying to pack a lot of other daughters' time into what she thought perhaps was not much time left for her.
One of the things that breaks my heart the most is that Patsy died before the umbrella of suspicion was lifted off your family, and I wanted to ask you about that. Being under that suspicion for that long, that is so traumatic. Like the PTSD I fear that you might have. Do you ever worry that they might come back for you? Do you ever think it's around the corner that the police are going to somehow botch something and come back for you?
Well, no, not really. I think I worried for a while that they would fabricate evidence.
Really?
Because they were very desperate to charge us. And fortunately, the district attorney's office was a roadblock. We can't just arrest these people, show us the evidence. Well, they didn't have evidence. In fact, they had conflicting evidence. Unidentified male DNA was found in 1997, which the police kept secret. And I told our attorneys, who were very passionate about defending us, I said, if they think we're guilty, let's charge us.
Yeah,
let's fight it out in court. And they said, you don't want to go through that. That's horrible.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
They said, well, we know the outcome. We 100% guarantee, money-back guarantee.
Yeah.
We'll defeat them in court. That's not going to be a problem, but you should not have to go through that.
You shouldn't have had to go through that with everything else you were suffering with the loss of JonBenet. Just quickly touch base on where we are with the investigation. I know that the cold case, I think it was the cold case team, Colorado cold case team, did a revision last year. They had 2,500 pieces of evidence, 21,000 tips, 1,000 interviews, samples from 200 people. But what about genetic genealogy? Like, what about that?
Well, what I heard, we didn't get any feedback from the cold case team. I was impressed with the caliber of the people on the team. Yeah. I was told that they strongly recommended more testing, more DNA testing, which is, of course, what we've been advocating for. And then we would like to see them go to this familial genealogy database.
Are they going to?
We have no idea.
They won't say?
No. I've developed a bit of a relationship with the current chief of police, who's number 5 in our case. And he's an interim right now, and so hopefully he'll be number 6 permanently. But he said there's things happening which I can't tell you about.
I understand that. It's frustrating, but I do understand if you want a pristine investigation, if you want a result, the best thing is for them to do their work. And
I agree. And
as hard as it is for the families.
I don't disagree with that.
John, I say this every time. I adore you, and
thank you.
I'm always in your corner, and I'm so thankful that you keep this mission alive. And I pray to God that we can join each other with answers one day.
You'll be the first person I call.
And we're going to pop a champagne cork together that finally there's some kind of justice that is headed your way.
Well, fair enough. I appreciate the prayers. They do work. I'm confident of that.
Heartfelt from our whole team, and I think also from the people here at CrimeCon. Probably can't hear us because it's a bit loud, but I think we all, I will speak for everybody saying.
This has been a very uplifting experience for me.
Good, I'm glad. I'm so glad.
Because of the people that are here.
They are very, very supportive. I can see them. John Ramsey, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so thankful to John every time he joins me on all of these programs. I do have another segment coming up after this. He was in prison, and then he was out of prison, and then they put him right back behind bars, and not because of a parole violation. Nope. The police in Oregon locked up Jesse Calhoun again because this time they suspected that he had moved on to committing much, much more serious crimes, like serial killing. After the break, how the cops found a pattern in almost a half dozen murders and how it led them right to his cell door. That is next on this special edition of Banfield at CrimeCon.
To 369-369. And if you text right now, you'll receive a bottle of vitamin D3 immune support absolutely free.
Doctors preferred. Better science. Better results.
Welcome back, everyone, to Banfield. We are at CrimeCon with a full studio audience. It's great to have everybody here. We have been covering so many different stories here, but this next one, 3 murders in 50 days, and maybe even more than that. All of it allegedly the work of an ex-con in Oregon. An ex-con who'd been serving time for assault and burglary, but was sprung early after he'd helped authorities with raging wildfires in that state. That was back in 2021, when Jesse Lee Calhoun walked out of an Oregon state prison a free man. But he was not going to be free for long because the police started linking Jesse Lee Calhoun to as many as 5 murders around Portland early last year. And suddenly, that early release was reversed, and back to prison Jesse went. And that's where Jesse was when 3 counts of murder and 3 counts of abusing a corpse were filed against him earlier this month. The indictment alleges that Calhoun killed his victims elsewhere and then dumped their bodies in remote areas where they wouldn't be found for days, maybe even weeks. One of the victims died of blunt force trauma, but exactly how the others died is not yet being revealed. All of the victims were women. The local sheriff calls Calhoun a prolific thief and career criminal. But if, in fact, he is guilty of serial murder, how did he make that leap? And did he make it just last year, or are there other victims going back a decade or more? I'm pleased to welcome Joseph Scott Morgan, certified death investigator and distinguished scholar of applied forensics at Jacksonville State University, and Dr. Catherine Ramsland, forensic psychologist and author of several books, including The Serial Killer's Apprentice, How Houston's Deadliest Murderer Turned a Kid into a Killing Machine. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much. I always say it's great to see you in person, so thank you for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Dr. Ramsland, let's start with this. Jesse Calhoun was out of prison for like a year, and then the police say he decided to start killing like this. And my question to you is, does it make sense that he just would allegedly suddenly become a serial killer?
Well, I think he's a spree killer. First of all, we don't know if there might be others. All we know is what he's being accused of right now. There could be others that will be linked to him, but it sounds to me more like with the tight time frame, it's a spree killer, and he apparently knew at least 2 of the victims, so that would suggest anger and revenge or some kind of mission as opposed to a sexually compelled serial killer. He could be a mixed type, serial to spree, but the 3 together in 50 days says more spree killer to me.
But does it suggest that there's likely a lot more bodies that are still to be found from whatever he was before this?
It really depends on his motivation. If he has a mission and it was specific to these victims, then not necessarily.
So, Joe Scott, linking victims, this is where your science and death investigation comes in. I'm always amazed unless there's a symbol left behind, like the Silence of the Lambs, with the moth. What is it that they look for in the way that people die in order to be able to link victims and know that you've got the same person?
Yeah, well, many times with serial offenders, you will have a specific methodology with which they kill individuals. And right now, the only clue that we have that they've released is this blunt force trauma to the head. That leads me to believe that either the other bodies, unfortunately, are in a state of such advanced decomposition that they can't determine that now, or that it was so subtle that you can't pick up on it. Because blunt force trauma is a very intimate event. You have to be, it's up close and personal. It's not like shooting somebody from a distance. They have an instrument that they've chosen, and they begin to beat the person about the head or in other locations. They do have an indication of that. So I think going back to your earlier supposition, are there other cases with linkage where you have someone that attacks someone utilizing blunt force trauma that remain open at this point in time?
And I don't know if people can hear, we're at CrimeCon, and so you're getting the sort of the benefit of hearing all of the action around us. It is odd to have a backstop of Cyndi Lauper singing as we talk about, serial killing, but such is how it is.
It works.
It does. I want to ask you, Dr. Ramsland, about the pace, because if we're talking about 3 murders, maybe more in 50 days, what do you think when you hear like a pace like that?
To me, it's either a mission, so he has something he wants to accomplish, in particular because he thinks he might get caught and he wants to get it done, or he had a grudge list.
But what about just the speed? No fear? I mean, no fear? Like, you just keep going? Like, doesn't want to lay low, see how things work out?
If he's driven by anger and revenge or a mission, the fear would not be there. He has something he wants to accomplish, and he's going to make sure it gets done.
Have you seen a lot of cases like that where there's just so many kills in a row in such a rapid succession?
Yes. I mean, we put them in the category of spree killer because it's at least 3 murders in at least 2 locations over a tight period of time and a tight geographic area, and this fits.
Yeah. Now, you touched on something that I want to dig a little deeper on, and that's decomposition. It's sort of a morbid topic, but so critical for forensic analysis and evidence. And I wanted to ask you about these particular victims because we've at least been told by the police that they were killed somewhere and moved, and that they weren't found for weeks or months.
Right.
That's where Joe Scott enters with his science. How hard is it going to be to get the evidence that's needed from victims that have been out in the elements potentially for months?
Well, I think one of the most striking things to me, one case in particular that they specifically mentioned relative to the movement or post-mortem movement, which is important to understand here, of the remains, is that some of the things we look for are post-mortem artifacts and also post-mortem interval. And one of the issues, let me just give you a for instance, if you have someone that has died on their back, for instance, and you have post-mortem lividity, the settling of the blood that occurs on the shoulders, the buttocks, the backs of the legs, and then you have a presentation of that is something other than that at another location where they're found lying down, you have this presentation, you get an idea that they have been moved. I think the understanding here is understanding why would he in fact move a body?
That's the fascinating.
Is it a plaything or is this something else?
I think we're going to learn a lot more about this. Joseph Scott Morgan, Dr. Catherine Ramsland, thank you so much. I so appreciate having you. And thank you to everyone who's here at CrimeCon who came to watch the program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again on Monday.
Hey everybody, I'm Brian Enton filling in for Chris Cuomo tonight. Yesterday, Donald Trump officially became the first president convicted of not just 1, not 2, but